Rite of Passage, the podcast with Giabra Martin.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the. I know it always, yeah, right when you hit record, it's like it just gives everyone a warning just so everyone knows. Yeah,
Gotcha.
throws me off a little. We are here today with author A.R. Redington. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well, very well. It has been an absolute hustle today, but I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we could do this. This is a lot more fun than just normal work stuff. So
Yeah.
always fun to chat with an author. So I did. So I was like looking at your information ahead of this, doing my research, all this. I'm sure it's really annoying when people ask you about the Predator book, but I was just watching Predator the other day and I was like, oh, it still holds up. Um, there you go. Oh, I love that cover too.
Yeah.
I have, I won't take up the whole podcast on that, but I do have questions. Firstly, I've never written fan fiction, but always been interested. But I noticed that it's like, how many authors were in on that book?
Um, I think there's about 15 of us.
That's what I mean. Like, I've never done something like that. How do you coordinate a project like that with 15 authors?
Well, I know the main editor for the book.
Okay.
I actually have met him over the years doing Comic Cons. I've gotten a lot of networking done, so I met a lot of authors and editors that way. And he's read The Esoteric Design, and we kind of
Nice.
just, connected that way. I've done book covers for him, and I've helped him format his own personal books as well. And he
Nice.
trusted me enough when he got greenlit with this, had to be approved with Fox Studios and Disney as well. Um,
Interesting.
and then he does anthologies where he will gather authors he trusts and he
Mm,
gives them the opportunity to pitch these ideas. And so he read Esoteric, and after working with me for a few years, he asked me if I wanted to be a part of Predator, which of course, yeah.
like, if you get that
Like, I
chance,
grew
you
up
go.
watching it with my dad. It's kind of like a bucket
Right.
list item, and I'm a big fan of Alien too. I've got my
Oh,
Xenomorph
there you go.
on.
Oh, look at that.
And so what's funny is this project was greenlit years ago. You remember the Predator movie that came out before Prey, and it kind of flopped. It was like it had the
Yeah, it
little
was like
kid in it.
Predators, maybe, and it was like
Well, there
I
was
always forget that
Predators,
guy's name.
and that was the one where they're on the Predator planet and they're being hunted. And then there was
Okay, there
another
was
one that took place on Earth, but there was
in like
like
Oregon.
a little boy in it, and I think he had autism or something, and he kind of outsmarted the Predators. And it
Okay.
kind of like flopped real bad. So the
Yeah,
movie
I
did
think that one.
bad.
Yeah.
And so I waited about 4 or 5 years. And then they finally came back and said, okay, we're going to try another anthology because
Yeah.
we're getting ready to release Prey. And
Okay.
that was how this got released the week after Prey came out on Hulu.
So like while it's all hyped up, while people are looking at it, talking about it, thinking about it, let's get the book out there.
Yeah.
Oh, so how? Okay, when it comes to that many authors, like what kind of piece? Like what piece did you personally play? Like everyone writes a chapter, or everyone's editing everyone. How does that even work?
For this one, Brian Thomas Schmidt was the main editor for this.
Okay.
He also wrote one of the stories as well. Um, but we basically had to do a little pitch summary,
Hmm.
submit that. Disney and Fox had to approve it. Then I wrote my story. So it had
Okay.
to been like I think within 7,000 words. They wanted to keep them short stories. And
Okay.
then that went through a round of editing submissions, and then they had to tell you, if it was good enough or not, and then do go through his edits and then the exec's edits and all that.
Right.
So I only went through about 2 rounds of edits because I also work as an editor for some authors, so mine was really
Right. So
clean.
yeah, yeah.
And so that worked out pretty well. And yeah, so we all wrote our own stories and then went through multiple rounds of edits.
See, that makes more sense. I didn't realize per se that it was like a series of short stories,
Mhm.
all inside the same book. But yeah, in terms of like royalties and stuff, I mean, does that just get just divvied up kind of?
We had a one-time payment fee for it.
Okay.
Um, so it was like a set price. Every author got paid um, so much per word that they wrote
Yeah.
up to the maximum of 7,000. I went just a
Okay.
little over because I'm really bad at keeping things short.
Yeah, you're like, yeah,
But
I
that
got
was
things to
fine.
finish.
I still got my full payment with that. And then we got a little bit of a discount on our own copy. So if we wanted to, we'd have our own copies on hand. But then other than that, yes, they pocket the rest. But
Well, that's wonderful. But yeah, I
it
mean, the
was a number
one-time
one
payment.
bestseller across all platforms that first week it came out.
Oh, I believe it.
Let me see here. So mine was The Trophy. It's on page 285. And so mine was basically um,
Oh, cool. Look at that.
intergalactic space hunter Rhea Ortega is after a target, but she finds out she's not the only one. She's a bounty hunter, and so there's someone
Okay.
else after her target as well. So she has to fight for it.
Ooh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to say, probably the one-time payment is probably way cleaner, right? On a project like that, you're like, just realistically, like, okay, that's probably way more practical. And especially, I mean, they knew it's going to be a winning project, like in tandem with the movie. It's like, okay.
Yeah, you'd have to
Yeah.
keep track of a lot of weird percentages for those who wrote shorter stories versus those who wrote bigger, and it'd be messy. I understand
It
that.
would
And
get squirrely
it was
real
published by
fast.
Titan Books, so
Okay.
they got to make their money too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everyone, but there's a lot of people involved in everyone to bring it to life, right? And they
Yeah,
got to have some clean way to give everyone their dues, kind of thing. No,
yeah,
what
it
a
was.
cool project, though. That is actually, I mean, what an amazing thing to be. Like they say, it's who you know. And honestly, I was doing a podcast. I have another show, and I was doing it with like the realtor who sold me my house. And he was saying his mentors always tell him it's like what you need to know and who you need to know. Those are the only two questions you ever got to ask on a project. But I am learning. I mean, for indie authors especially, it's like these just connections you make. I mean, just randomly at book events or a bookstore, or even on TikTok and things. I mean, you never know, but I mean, that's how opportunities come up, right? Like they find you when you know people who you're searching for stuff, they're searching for stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the most important thing is, be friendly, make
Right.
friends, make for
I'm not
that.
sure if you
So,
froze or oh, sorry, I froze for a second, or you froze for a second, maybe. I heard be
yeah,
friendly, and then it cut off until just at the end.
okay. I was gonna say, it's always best to be friendly, make friends and connections, and help each other out. And so, yeah, like I said, Brian and I were friends at first,
Mhm.
and I did work for him, and he put enough trust into giving me a chance at this, and he said he was pretty happy with that. So I hope that we get to work on anthologies in the future. I think it's been a while since he's done one. He's been doing a lot of his own personal work lately, so I've been
Yeah, for
helping him
sure.
get those out. But yeah, and the thing with TikTok is making friends. I'm really, it's great that I'm here now, but I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting on Book Talk sooner because people the last couple of years have been saying, "Are you on Book Talk?" But I didn't understand TikTok at first. Like it's just a
Yeah.
bunch of dancing teenagers, and yeah, but
Honestly, even reading your bio, I relate to you a lot, and particularly that point. I've only been on there maybe 6 months, but I figured it was just like any other social media. And like my impression was, it's just teenagers doing dance videos. I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing now. Like I'm gonna get on there and dance, sell my books, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not totally hyped up about all that. But it's nothing like what I thought. I mean, there's no other social media like it. But I mean, I'm pretty new to it as well,
yeah,
so yeah, just I think it was like honestly, if you had been there 5 years ago or something or whenever, I mean, we'd probably be at 100,000 plus, or you know what I mean,
I
like
know.
early on, and I was like, oh, but I suppose the timings of all things is perfect at the end of the day. And but yeah, I saw in your bio, so you're also an illustrator.
Mhm.
Very cool. That's one thing I relate to you on is like I try to do my own illustrations on the books, and I kind of grew up like drawing more than writing. Is that kind of where you were? Or are you just like art has always just been your deal?
I've always created art since I was little. And I knew okay, video games are my biggest inspiration. So
Okay.
when I was little, I had, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and do you remember the little cartridges would have character art or, title
Yeah.
art on the
Yeah.
cartridge, and then the
Yeah.
instruction booklets had character designs? I
Yes,
used
yes.
to draw those. So I draw like Chun-Li from Street Fighter. And then
Okay.
when I got older, the Final Fantasy guides, I would draw those characters. Well, it kind of started thinking, well, what if I had my own world like Final Fantasy? And I started
Right.
creating my own characters. And that's actually how I came up with the esoteric design.
Oh, look at that.
And so there's like over 50 illustrations in this, but it started off with character concepts.
Oh, I love that.
And so I
Are
have
they
all the
all in black and white? Or you have them in color too?
In this book, they're all black and white, but I would like to do a special edition someday because
Right.
some of the illustrations are just
Oh, yeah.
really nice and colorful.
Right. And the colors, like the purple in there, is essential, right? I mean, it's just beautiful and that's like a tough, and your readers may not know that. Like, if you want to print a book in color, I mean, it just adds the price so much. It's like,
It's super
oh, maybe I'll do
expensive.
like I have one, it's like a hardcover and then it's in color and it's like $50, and I think I'm making like $3 on it. But I'm like, yeah, it sounds like I'm being greedy, but I'm like, I don't know. It's a tough choice then, especially as an illustrator too. It's like, how
Well,
do we
some of
want to produce this thing?
those really colorful hardcover editions that are coming out now, it's becoming really popular for people to drop 50, $60 on these
Right.
hardcover special editions. So I would like to eventually do that. And for the release of my newest series, Guardians of the Lamb, I am
Hmm.
planning on trying that with this new
Okay.
series. So we're going to see how that goes. I'm
You
kind of
know, I
nervous about
suppose
it,
like
but yeah.
if people check out your Kindle first and they're like, oh my God, I love this book. I'd love to see the art, how it was intended. They might come back and like invest in the real, like, hey, this isn't just a book. This is like an artistic journey and experience. And like, I
Yeah.
want to be part of that and communicate with and have it in hand as intended, right?
And that's why I went indie with these because I
Yeah.
actually was pitching it to publishers and I had gone and talked to I can't remember which publisher it was. I was at
Yeah.
this event in the public you meet publishers and other authors and
Yeah.
stuff. And it was a big name publisher and I was talking to them and they're like, "Well, first of all, we'd cut your book down in size. We'd take out all of your artwork because adults don't like art in their books. Those are for children's books." And I was
That's
just
all.
like, that's like a huge selling point. I show
Yeah.
people, and there's art, and people are like, oh, wait, it's just something to make it more shiny and fun. And then they're like, yeah, and your covers, we will take that off too, and we'll have to use our own in-house artists. And I was just like, but I have a BFA in illustration. I've been working in
Right.
graphic design for, so many odd years and all this kind of stuff. It's like I know what I'm doing. And then I see other traditional publishers publishing people's books with their own artwork. So I'm like, where do you know,
Yeah, it's like we love your book, we want to invest in it, but we want to make it completely different than it is. Like we love it so
exactly.
much, we want to change everything about it, and we're very excited about this project.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's
something like that, I definitely wanted full creative control on it. Maybe some of my other ones, like Trouble with Mystery, maybe someday I could let someone, because it's just a romantic thriller. There's no art, there's nothing really.
right. And just let them, if they're willing to like invest in it and do like some of the marketing activities that maybe we're not in the best position to do, like because I mean, there's so many opportunities with like newspaper blast, or I forget, like press releases and things. And I mean, I honestly have no sense of which of those make sense and which don't. You know what I mean? Like, but it does feel like in all industries are like this, whether it's music, movies, it feels like they're always behind the ball, behind the times. And to say that like, oh, adults don't really want the illustrations. Like for me, when I'm reading, I mean, as an author, I want to know about the person who wrote the book. Like, as much as I'm enjoying the story, I want to know about like the mind that created this thing. And I feel like the illustrations, like you pair those together, and it's just another glimpse into like the soul of a very highly unique, sort of anomalous person.
Yeah.
So, like for me, that's very interesting. So for them to be like, oh, that's not, we don't think that's going to work, or it's not going to add any value. I mean, that on its face seems ridiculous, but I don't know. That's just my take.
Well, and what was funny is around that time they said that I had found a fully illustrated version of Lord of the Rings at Barnes and Noble, collector's
Right.
edition. And people were buying that. And we now have proof with these color special edition hardback books that everyone's doing, and there's illustrations inside of it and stuff. People are eating those up.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like, yeah, people, I don't know. I always thought it was cool to see illustrations and things in there.
Yeah.
So
I guarantee whoever owns that Lord of the Rings one, like in full color, I mean, if their house is on fire, like they're gonna go get that book on the way out. It's like special to people, right? It's like, oh, I mean, stories are so much bigger than just like, oh, it's a book I read. I know there's avid readers who like, I always wonder how things stick, right? It's like if you read 20 books in February, like how much of an impact did each one make? But I don't know, stories, they run deep with people, right? Like they connect in who we are and who we want to be and who we could be. And I don't know. They mean so much to us. I mean, like we see ourselves in the characters, and it's bigger than just words on paper.
yeah,
So much bigger than that.
right.
Well, tell me about your new book. I want to. Okay, first of all, when is it coming out?
Sometime this year.
Okay, we're gonna leave it
I
open
don't know
ended
a
a little bit.
specific date yet. I'm going through, I think, probably my final round of edits, and then I'm going to try to get it out to ARC readers.
Okay.
And then I'm going to start, creating the files for it, the interiors, the ebooks, and that special edition hardcover. and
Hey,
then kind of see about doing that. I'm going to try the Kickstarter for the special edition hardback.
okay,
So I'm nervous about that, but I've been studying that and researching how that goes and talking to Kara Blaine. She's done one recently and she did really
nice,
well. Um,
nice.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
I've
never done the Kickstarter thing. You'll have to let me know. Just
yeah, kind of
yeah, I'm kind of
nervous.
curious. Like, I don't know, we're always breaking new ground as indie authors, right? It's like, all right, like every day, like we're trying something new.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of feel like I need to do it now because like everyone's jumping on that. And I feel like I've been just a little bit behind everything. I was doing good, I was keeping up with it, but I had my daughter and
Mhm.
then, some health issues. So for a couple years I didn't write really anything and I've been
Right.
really far behind. So I started all over. I republished everything a couple years ago under A.R.
Nice.
Redington.
Yeah.
So I lost all my reviews on Amazon because of that. And so I feel like I'm starting all over. So it's like I'm going to try all new stuff. I'm like a new author now, and then this new series is like the new, it is strictly A.R. Redington, no old name attached to it. Let's do it. And so trying new
I
things
love
with
it.
this new series.
But you know what? You're like, all right, if I've done it once, I can do it again.
Yeah.
Right. Doing it once, I think, is the hard part. Doing it, be like, all right, you know what? We've been here. I know I'm good for it. I know what it looks like when it's happening. We're just going to do it again. Yeah.
And honestly, I was scared to get back into it. I developed a fear because I'd been away from my creative outlet for so long. But
Right.
honestly, joining TikTok the last few months and meeting so many people has actually been extremely inspiring and motivating. And it's actually helped me to gain that confidence back, which is weird because I've never had a lack of confidence in my creative endeavors. I've always been all about art and writing and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of weird, and I think
It's
that was just a lot of stuff going on.
it's funny, they say you can like develop an allergy to any food at any time. Like you can also just develop like if you're home too long, you're like, damn, what's outside? You're like,
I
and
think, yeah, I think that's what it is. COVID happened, and then I got pregnant right at the start of COVID.
yeah.
And then it's been I've just been at home and yeah, in mama
It's just
mode.
a different world. You're like, and honestly, and the men will never appreciate this, but I talk about this with my wife a lot. I mean, as the men, we will never understand what women, go through and like being pregnant and even like, the whole like baby's out and breastfeeding. It's like fourth trimester. It's like outpatient pregnancy. It's like the
It,
baby
it
can't
screws up
stay in,
your
but the baby's not
body,
ready to
it
be out
screws
there.
up your mental health. And
I mean, everything.
unfortunately, pushing her out ignited my second autoimmune disease. So I've got two of those, and I have to take chemo meds for that. And so that's
Really?
harsh medication. So, that was a lot of change all at once, on top of a lot of side effects and things like that. So that obviously has played a lot of part in like why I've kind of stalled on my writing the last couple of years. And I'm actually
Right.
kind of scared to write this second book in the series because it's been so long since I've just buckled down and written something. So
Right.
we'll
I
see
don't
what.
think people lose it though. It's like, you know what I mean? Like obviously maybe you can get like out of practice, but like I feel like you're either a writer or like you either know how to express yourself or you don't, right? Like I
Mhm.
think for me what it comes down to is like, okay, what story are you going to tell? And I feel like as we have more, because it sounds like you're not only rebuilding yourself artistically, but I mean like so many areas of your life. You're like, okay, I have a whole new baseline in my health and hormones, and I'm like, who am I today? And like I'm reinventing everything, including the artist, which is intricately, inextricably connected with just your identity as, an artistic soul kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's beautiful though. I'm excited for the book. I feel like it's like almost like a comeback story or something like Cinderella
Yeah.
Man. It's like, oh, like great like, oh, I got to get out of boxing and all these mishaps. And then you're like, you know what? I know what I'm fighting for. And like, I got my family and I got to show my kids the dream is real.
And
And like,
that's perfect because it's all about fighting. It's about
it's all
fighting
about
for your
fun.
friends, fighting for what's right, and all that. And I just realized I didn't even tell you anything about it. Guardians of the Lamb
Tell
is
me everything.
it's a romantasy action adventure. I'm just pushing the romance a little bit, but I mean it has a very intricate plot.
Right.
Humans bind to the elemental spirits of these creatures called Alem, and so the power is called soul power, and that gives the humans elemental powers. The more they use
Okay.
these elemental powers, the more animalistic they become. So, like
Mm,
the main character Kia, she's got tiger ears, tiger tail. She's slowly in the middle of her transformation. So people, could call her a hybrid.
okay.
And then there's the full bestials. They're kind of like your full anthropomorphic characters, and they live out in the
Nice.
bestial plains outside of the cities. And then you have the Iron Cities of Bernhelder, which is a theocratic government that is against the use of Alem and soul power. And
Mm.
they are capturing Alem, siphoning soul energy, wherever they can find it and utilizing it for energy and resources and weaponry.
Hmm.
Well, as they're siphoning the energy out of the center of the planet to try to dig deep into ancient Alem souls, where, like one's like a massive dragon spirit,
Yeah. Okay.
it creates these earthquakes that ends up awakening an ancient plague-like force. So it's like an insect race. So this
Wow.
insect race awakens, comes out of the ground, and just starts decimating. And so you've got multiple wars going on, in factions and different groups and leaders that have powers and different beliefs as to who should be in charge and who shouldn't, what's blasphemous, what's not. And then the people in between are like, hey, we just want to live our lives and be at peace with nature. And so Key and
Right.
her friends are trying to avoid capture by the Bernhilder government while trying to find a way to bring um, peace to nature. So it's like not a quick, I don't know how to give a quick pitch summary because there's
Right.
so much going on. There's also the Alam, there's an imbalance in nature. So the Alam turn into lethal shades. So what were peaceful elemental creatures are now attacking humans. There's
Mm.
Magnoliathropes. They're a flower race that's ancient that lives within time rifts. Um,
Okay.
this is a lot of stuff going on. A matriarchal society, Yernosh.
Okay.
They're after another character, Egel. So there's a lot going on.
There's a lot. I mean, that's like to keep that all in your head. Like, do you have a room where you got like red strings going from like
It's all in here in red
it's
strings
all
and
in
then a
here?
bunch of like sentence fragments in like a Word document. I am like the most
Ah,
disorganized note taker ever. I've got sticky notes.
I love that.
I
Let me
keep
ask you.
things in
So
little sandwich bags for
to
ideas.
have a to have a story that complicated, do you associate it in terms of your memories like with music or anything? Like I've had it, and I have this. Some authors like this. Like you couldn't tell me anything, but I put on a certain song, and you're like, oh, in this scene, and you just like go on a total riff, and you know all the details.
Um, well, when I start, I have just these key points in my head that are
Okay.
important plot points. And I'm not sure exactly, I have like the beginning, the middle, the end, and then some spots here and there, and it's like connect the dots. I just start from this point and I just write and download. But when I do it, I listen to soundtrack music. So I like
Okay.
video games and movie soundtracks, and sometimes those scenes, like the music, certain songs I do later associate with certain scenes from my book because it helps really push that mood and that vibe or that whole scene.
That
So
feeling, or
I actually
yeah,
have been compiling playlists on Spotify because
there
I've
you
seen
go.
some authors do that. And I was like, well, here's some songs that inspire specific scenes from The Esoteric Design or The Trouble with Mystery. And I'm throwing
Right.
those in there that I'll eventually link to.
Well, I love
But
that.
yeah, so I'm kind of like a connect the dots kind of writer, and
Yeah.
it's like magic. Sometimes it just pulls together, and I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, the
You know what
author
it is?
helps,
I
you
think
helps.
because a lot of your story, the way you describe it, kind of runs parallel with real life, but in like kind of a fantasy sort of way with like all these people trying to they're like people in the middle, people trying to control things, people trying to, this and that. Um, and maybe because I don't know if I don't think I've interviewed anyone who's an author and illustrator. Sometimes I refer to myself as having like an intensely pattern seeking mind, like connecting dots between things that are like totally unrelated. And it's like, but it helps you fill in stories, right? Like you hear one thing and you're like, oh, that could go into here. And then sort of like suddenly you have all these puzzle pieces and you're like, it all makes sense. It's all one thing. And you put it in a book.
Yeah, it's like
Kind of
Tetris
sounds
in
like
your brain.
kind of a little bit. Hey, let me ask you, you inspired a novel thought here. And I'm going to dig into this book a lot here. So I have this theory, like philosophers sometimes get things wrong, and fiction writers get certain things right intuitively without even understanding what they mean. I just noticed in fiction writing, particularly fantasy, there is a fascination with what I'm gonna call like elder blood. It's like elder blood's more powerful, old vampires are more powerful, the ancient magic is better than the new magic. And it sounds like you've got something like that. Like, hey, if we dig deep to like the oldest, it's significantly more potent kind of in terms of the powers that we're going to yield kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, why do you think we have that fascination?
Hmm. I don't, I think it's kind of that it dives into searching the unknown, lost history, lost
Mhm.
deities, or spiritualism, uh, things like that. I think we have a lot of connection, whether we consider ourselves spiritual or not, or religious or not. There's just that
Mhm.
that I think humans, we have a sense of wanting and desiring more. and
Yeah.
finding magic or finding spiritual things. And whether that's in our past, we want to have connections to that. And I think that's just a continual search. I know for me, especially in recent years, that's a whole new thing, is trying to find that new sense of light within myself
Mhm.
and that creative energy. And there's always that, overcoming adversity, whether it's within yourself or within things that are holding you back. And you just kind of
Mhm.
translate that, at least in our storytelling, in our writing, with the villains or conflict that the characters go through, or even maybe their own uh, toxic character traits.
Do you find that somehow the books you're writing happen to somehow run parallel with exactly where you are in your life?
Definitely. Yeah.
So like there are times when like even when you're going through a very, very difficult, adverse, you're rebuilding yourself, but in doing so, you're creating characters that can do that, that can also show other people how to do that.
It's a form of therapy, like art therapy, writing
Right.
and creating stories. I tell people one of my favorite characters is Dovian from the Esoteric Design, because um, he's a sole survivor of the angelic race. Um,
Hmm.
these angels came down what was known as the second fall.
Mm.
And he I don't give the details away in the first book, but in the third book, it's a prequel that tells you about his life. You find out why he is somehow responsible for the ultimate demise of his entire race. He's a
Okay.
very tortured individual mentally, and he's pretty much a manifestation of my depression and
Mm.
those deep, dark feelings that we have, and the feelings of whether or not humanity is even worth saving.
Right.
And that's kind of his predicament throughout the story too, is he sacrificed his whole race to keep humanity alive. And then he's finding out later, when he connects thousands of years later back with humanity, Ari and Troy, the main characters, he sees just the world has just gotten even worse than he could ever imagine. And he's just like, should I just decimate it and be done with it, or should I save these people? And so my
Right.
characters in the Esoteric Design, every character I feel like is a piece of me. They all represent a chunk of me. The happy, silly one, the more aloof one, the depressed one, the angry one, the evil one,
Right. Right.
and that just kind of, I guess it helped me process a lot of my own thoughts and feelings, and sometimes things that I didn't even know that I was feeling or thinking.
Yeah. That's like, I have this, oh God, there's so much to unpack in there. And it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I know that it sounds like with you and, with a lot of authors, anyone who reads your book is going to know you infinitely better than you will ever know them. And it's like, you can't really develop a character you don't understand, right? Like I can't explain what they're doing or why, or know what they're going to do next without an understanding of who they are and what makes them tick and what motivates them and the way they think and all this. I've had this question, like if a painting can ever be more beautiful than the painter, right? Like you look at the most beautiful painting from Caravaggio, or you look at like the best Hemingway or something. It's like somehow everything in the painting is the painter, but the painter is not just that. It's also the person who can make all these other things. Um, but yeah, it sounds like, I mean, all these characters, they're like some like fragmented piece of you. Like if you were to just take like whatever extreme thought or season or pattern and like turn it into a character, they all represent, you fill up this whole world. It's it's complicated. I love that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to
Sometimes
make things way more complicated than they should be. I'm a glutton for
no, you're
punishment.
not though. I would hope as authors, because everyone thinks they're going through very unique things, right? But at the end of the day, like we all have kind of the same struggles. Like the details are all very nuanced and different. But we're all going through a lot of the same things. But I think hopefully as authors, we can take whatever we're going through, whatever we learn about it, and try to do something good. And even if it's like Hemingway, where there's no resolution, like it always ends with like, well, life's kind of life's hard. Like there's no like happy ending. It's just like, well, that sucked. But we still got to get up and go to work, whatever. At least it connects, right? Like even if we're not giving anyone answers, at least it's like, well, it's not just you, it's not just me. Like we're kind of in this thing together,
Yeah. I think that's why people relate a lot with the more broken characters.
I think so.
I don't like perfect characters, and I could get a lot of, flack for this one, but for superheroes, one of my least favorite superheroes is Superman. He's just
Hmm.
imperfect in every way. Like to me, he was boring and unrelatable. So I like kind of the darker stuff, the more tortured characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But some
Superman.
people
There was
like that
actually
sense of perfection, Some people aspire to that perfection. I don't know.
right. And like who we could strive to be or who we could be if we made all the right decisions or something. But there was actually a problem when they were writing the Superman comics where like he got too powerful. And apparently they had to introduce kryptonite because it was like, hey, like this is just no fun anymore. Like he just, stopped and whatever, stopped a whole train with his pinky finger. And like this
Yeah.
isn't fun anymore. Like we need to introduce even some conflict or like something that's an even match. I think what we really like, well, in hero stories, right? You want the hero to be right at the upper limit of what they can handle and even question if they can get through something, right? Like you want them to even figure out if they're good for it, right? Like Batman, like I don't know how to deal with the Joker, like I don't know how to defeat this man, I don't understand this man. But that's like a metaphor for real life. Like that's what we can do as authors because everyone in every season is dealing with something like that. That like I got problems that I don't even know if I'm good to overcome these. And those hero stories are like you find a way, you keep fighting, you get through it, and that's what we can do, I think. So not to get too philosophical on you, I reminisce on philosophical. So your world, is it kind of parallel with like the world as we know it? Or is it more like fantasy? Like,
For Guardians of the LM,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
newest one. That one's gonna
Yes.
be more fantasy. It's on,
Okay.
complete fictional planet with, you know, different magic systems and stuff like that. But what's
Yeah.
funny is I actually wrote it on Kindle Vella a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I'm kind of just reworking it, cleaning it up and stuff. Um, it's very relevant to what's going on today now. So
Okay.
it's also like I need to get this out now because I think a lot of people are going to find these parallels a little familiar with kind of some of the things that are going on. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with the esoteric design, the capitalism, the government, the way it all functions, and the esoteric
Right.
design is uh highly, you know, relatable to what's going on today. And it kind of
Good
like
time.
it almost feels like you were predicting the future a bit. I originally published that in 2014 and
Right.
started writing it a few years before that. And there's certain names I was going to use in the book that I was like, just for legal reasons, I'm going to leave those names out. So I came up with different names to put in there. And I'm just like,
Right.
wow, that's a little odd how that played out.
You're like, damn, I'm good. Like, saw this
Yeah.
coming 10 years out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's a warning, people. It's a warning.
That's like, that is interesting. Hey, of the books you currently have available, because I don't want to talk too much about what's coming soon. I mean, I do, but in terms of like, hey, if anyone's hyped up after this podcast, of what is currently available, what is your absolute favorite?
Oh, obviously the esoteric design. That one was my
Gotta be.
baby because I
This the baby.
first
Is that
started the art. Yeah, that one's like my baby. This is the first one that I published, and I was creating it. The artwork for those characters started when I was 14 years old, and then
hmm,
I just kept drawing them throughout high school. When I was in college, we had to do a grad show, and at that time, I was writing Final Fantasy fan fiction online.
nice.
And I
There you
had like
go.
20,000 followers. And they're like,
There
man, you
you
should
go.
write your own books. You're really good at this. And then it clicked because I was doing concept art of these characters thinking, what would it be like as a video game?
Right.
And I didn't know how to turn it into a game, so I wrote it out instead. So the esoteric design has this premise where the enemies get bigger and badder as you progress. There's strategies that they need to follow to beat these monsters. So it's really popular with gamers. The artwork
Yeah.
helps. So yeah, the esoteric design. I've got book one,
Check it out.
book two,
Sweet.
and book three. But
Okay.
I feel like my newest one, Guardians of the Limb, is going to be my next baby.
Hmm. And it's a whole different series, or is that book for the Guardians of the Limb?
Guardians of the Limb is my newest series, that
Okay.
romantasy action adventure that will be coming out. I'm a little
Yes.
nervous because I wrote it all in first person for some reason, multiple point of
Okay.
view. So
Ah,
we'll see how it
I I
goes.
like the first person because I feel like sometimes it's essential to be in the character's head,
It's
right?
growing
You
in
can't get that from the
popularity.
outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I'm like, I want, like certain things, like the thought process, right? Like, how do you describe that from the outside and make it clear? I'm not really sure.
I think I kind of just would do that with esoteric. I kind of let them know what they're thinking with either, not like thought bubbles, but some of their thought, and then art or the narrator kind of revealing some of their thoughts or emotions. But I
Yeah.
find like when I have an idea for a story, I write and it just organically comes out in a particular voice. And so
Hmm.
when I was writing Whispers from Beyond, this is 30 miniature stories. Some are
Love the
in third
cover.
person, some are in first person. and it just depends on the vibe and the feel of the story. And
Yeah.
now the esoteric design itself is 500,000 words in third person, that series.
Oh,
And then The Trouble with Mystery is my romantic thriller, and that one was all written in first person.
yeah. You just go with your
I don't
gut, right?
know.
Like just what comes naturally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like authors, sometimes we think too much. It's like you got to let the story tell itself. Like right from the gut, like almost take your mind out of it and just let it just
mhm.
flow strictly from intuition is a better way to do it. Yeah. Hey, I know we're going to get kicked out in a minute and a half here. I want to make
Okay.
sure if we get booted at the end, I want to make sure we at least have all of your info. So, where should people look for you, look for your books, social media? What are the handles?
All right. You pretty much find me anywhere at AR Redington. My website is arredington.com. My books are available in print everywhere, pretty much where books are sold. And I've recently pulled out a distribution for my ebooks, and they are available on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited.
Nice. And in the description, I will put all the links and then Amazon. So I'll put specific books too. You definitely got to keep us posted on, ARC readers and when things are coming out. And
Yeah, I
I
will.
definitely want to be apprised of all of that. Yeah. We got to do this again. I know, like, and I feel like there's so much we could talk about, right? Like this 40-minute thing is killing me. Like right now, it keeps me very focused, but I'm like, also, like, sometimes you get into topics and you're like, damn, I want to explore that a little bit more.
Well, we can always do a part two if you want.
I would love to do a part two. I would honestly, we'll get that in the calendar because this was fun. I feel like we only just started scratching the surface here. So,
Yep.
hey, AR Reddington, thank you for coming on, and we will see you again on here soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Of course. Have a good one. All
You too.
right. We'll see you.
All right. Bye.